He's climbing in your windows, he's snatching your people up, trying to rape them, so y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your kids, hide your wife.
Alright you guys, it's time for another Media Raptor Reacts and Reviews. And today I'm going to take a look at a 2003, well I guess, horror comedy. Horror comedy from, well, Universal Pictures. That movie is Tremors 4: The Legend Begins. You guys might not be able to tell, but I'm right now holding the Tremors Attack Pack, which contains not one, not two, not three, but all 4 Tremors films. Now, I'd like to say I'm a huge fan of the first Tremors movie. Tremors 2 and 3 I loved as well, I thought they were great. Now, number 4, I would like to say I know anything about this film, but I don't. The only thing I know is that it stars Michael Gross, who's been in all of them, and it was released in 2003, and it was the last Tremors film made, if you don't count the TV show. And I'm just looking at the menu picture right here, and it seems to be set in the Old West. Yeah, I could, if I wanted to, guys, I could sit here all day and I could list off franchises that when they hit number 4, that's when the problems really start to build. And a good chunk of those have been horror franchises. But since that's not my job, I'm not going to bore you guys with that. Right now, I am really hoping that this movie is as good as the previous 3 Tremors films. I hope it's still cheesy, yet fun, and the story is good, and the acting is good. But you know what, guys? I'm not gonna find that out if I keep talking, am I? So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Tremors 4: The Legend Begins. Okay guys, I will say this, we're only 3 minutes into this, like I just hit the opening credits, and we already have a body count of about 9. That's faster than any Tremors film I've seen. Granted, we didn't see the worm, but it is trying to help build the suspense, considering we're in Nevada in 1889. You guys, we've had a lot of, oh, never mind, we finally get to see a graboid. I was about to comment, it's been like, this film's been going on for about 25 minutes now. We've had maybe 15 people die, that's kind of a rough estimate. And out of 25, roughly, people, we only saw 1 graboid thing. And we only saw the tongue out of it. Guys, I never thought I would say this when watching a Tremors film. I am bored right now. Like, I am really bored. Just give me something. I don't care if it's action. I don't care if it's just more plot than the very little we've had. I don't care if the graboids come out and perform a musical song and dance routine. Give me something. Give me anything. Finally! It's taken us an hour, but we finally get to see a graboid. And they look great. Wait, so this idiot just gets to leave? He gets to leave and he doesn't get ripped apart by a graboid? Dude, that's pathetic! I want this guy dead! Wow, he's just ditching the town when they need him and he's allowed to live? Thank you for ending! No, be quiet. I am not listening to that music anymore. Wow. Wow. Okay, you guys. Wow. Let me just calm down for a sec. That was Tremors 4: The Legend Begins. Now, I would like to say, if I had never been a fan of the original Tremors, and that Tremors 2 Aftershocks and Tremors 3 Back to Perfection had not been as good as they were, I would easily be able to write, if two if even just 3 was bad, I'd be able to write this whole thing off as just a bad case of sequels. But you know what? 2 and 3 were great. So why is number 4 so bad? I'm sorry, you guys. I'm really curious. Yeah, I do remember very clearly stating at the beginning of this video that when it hits 4 in a lot of horror franchises, that's when things go bad. And I could list off like 20 right now if I wanted to, but you know what? I really just gotta get into this thing. Wow. So, the writing. I know I've referenced this film a lot of times. You guys remember Monsters way, way back when I first started this thing? When I first started this whole series? Remember I said the pacing was horrible and we had no payoff? The pacing is horrible here, but we get some payoff. And I never thought I would say that about a Tremors film. You see, this whole film runs, let's see, an hour and 41 minutes. So, yeah, it's like the second longest one, and Tremors 3 is the longest. I'm not sure how long they would be if you didn't count the credits, but whatever. And the first maybe hour and 10 minutes are very boring. Trying to show they hired a gunsman who got eaten by a graboid immediately after they went to the place where the graboids were an hour in, and you finally saw a graboid. Yeah. And then the final half an hour, well, no, more like final 20 minutes maybe, is more the whole town getting together and then fighting back. And that stuff was actually interesting. However, the rest of the film was not. I understand completely that this thing was trying to serve as a prequel to Tremors. And I can clearly see they referenced the original Tremors they referenced, well, all 3 Tremors films multiple times. But it doesn't work. See, the film's biggest problem is, well, too much sizzle and no steak. Or too much fizzle and no steak. You see, the thing is, I would have been completely fine if we had, like, graboids attacking people, like, if it was, like, the first 20 minutes, maybe. Because I remember in, like, the first Tremors film, it was, like, something like half an hour before you saw a graboid, actually. Now, I would have been completely happy, and in fact, it would have made the film so much better if the first 20 minutes were set up and they were all that stuff. Like, I would have been fine with this movie if they actually showed the graboids more. So you know what? If they had trimmed the story a little bit and showed the graboids more, this thing would have been great. Now, however, the acting? Well, no, I have to continue. Well, acting from everybody is great. Everyone plays their characters really well. Now, while I'm on the subject of acting and characters, I'm going to kind of step back to writing a bit more. When the film begins, all the characters have a nice amount of depth. It's not huge, but they never had a large amount of depth in Tremors before. Yeah. So anyhow, let me just kind of come out and say this. The first bit, you can care about all these characters. You're given a reason to care, you're given a reason to understand what they're going through, and everything, and it all makes sense, and it all really works. Then, I don't remember the point exactly, but for about half the film, like from maybe after the first, I don't know, 20 minutes, all reason to care dies. It all dies. There was one scene for about 2 minutes when they kind of gave you a reason to care about one guy, and then that kind of dies. And then at the very end, they kind of just go and like just shove in a whole bunch of reasons to care. And you kind of do, but it's not as good as it should be. It was nowhere nearly as good as the first 3 Tremors. And I'm probably going to say that a bunch of times over the next few minutes, just bear with me. Yeah. So the acting was good. The writing, that's the film's biggest fault. However, these special effects, I will say, one thing, probably my favorite thing about the first Tremors was the all-around cheesy brilliance of it. It was goofy, and it was wacky, and it was just so cheesy and poorly made that I loved it. Then in 2 and 3, they started to use, aside from what I believe is a giant puppet for the graboid, they started to use CG. And the CG looks really good. When I was surprised by that, considering they've always had low budgets in this thing. And the CG still looks really good in here, save for a few shots. There were a few shots when the graboid's blood is shown, like it's supposed to be coming up from the ground because they killed one. I couldn't tell if it was CG or not. Either way, it looked horrible. Like, really, really bad. Like, bad enough I was noticing it. So yeah, but other than that, like, the effects were really good. I was impressed. The puppets are, well, I can't call them puppets. The graboids, when they weren't CG, they still looked as good as they did in the previous 3. And this is a very good positive. This film is set in, like, 1889 in Nevada or something like that. These sets look amazing, and the costumes look amazing. Everything looks like as if they're actually back in 1880 whenever. It looks really, really cool. Music. I haven't seen a lot of westerns, but I have heard some western movie soundtrack music, so I understand what it's supposed to sound like. This film, for some reason, had techno-western. And you know what, I was okay with that because I'm a huge techno fan, as you may have heard just from some of my opening theme songs. I love hip-hop, I love techno. But techno-western, I didn't like it, you know? Some of it was techno-western is what I'm going to call it, and some of it was just straight-up western, and some of it was straight-up action. But it still wasn't, I didn't like it, okay? Lighting, another huge problem this film was suffering from, and I believe it's strictly because it was in 1888, they had oil lamps, and they made the scenes really hard to see. I completely understand they must have had like floodlights and other lights lighting the scene, but just, it didn't look that good, and the problem was they were trying to do what Alien had done by showing the graboids in the dark and suddenly eating someone, but what Alien did is he actually saw a part of the alien before someone died, and it's not just straight up, oh, he's suddenly dead, and we just hear a weird noise. We don't get anything from it, and yeah. And then some of it's filmed in Nevada and outside in the middle of the day with no clouds, so you know what? The ending, that's when it was filmed like outside. We don't have to worry about that. Let's see, I've covered, writing, acting, music. Well, yeah, there's no, like, copyright songs in here. Before I say can I recommend this, I would like to say, all 3 Tremors films, the continuity was great. They managed to explain tons of stuff. And this one, it's not really, continuity isn't a problem because it's like 200 years before, no, like 100, I don't know, it's at least 100 years before Tremors actually happened. So, yeah. So you don't have to worry about continuity, you don't have to worry about any of that, but they do like to reference and show what the ancestors to everyone was before. So when it all comes down to it, can I recommend Tremors 4, The Legend Begins? No. I cannot recommend this. Even as a bad movie, even if you absolutely adore all 3 Tremors movies, do not ever watch Tremors 4. It is nothing aside from my insane love of the first 3 that is keeping me from just hating the entire franchise right now. I have not seen a sequel this bad that has made me this mad and almost made me hate the previous movies. I have not seen anything that's made me like just do this since I've seen The Hangover Part 3. Wow. You guys, and surprisingly, S.S. Wilson is the dude who directed this. He also directed Tremors 2 Aftershocks. And that thing, like I've said, was amazing. So what was your excuse for making this thing so horrible, dude? Now, I'd like to say, if I ever meet S.S. Wilson, I am going to have a very long talk with him about how not to make a movie. which will ultimately include the worst wedgie he has ever had and the worst swirly that mankind will have ever seen. And I'm not going to actually harm him because he still has Tremors 2 to back him up. But dude, what were you thinking? I'm glad that they ended Tremors at number 4. And I know there is a TV show. I'm actually kind of gotta check that out at some point. But I'm kind of glad they ended in here instead of going into multiple sequels like just about every single horror franchise that is out there. If you don't believe me, just go look anything up that's a horror franchise. Yeah. I'm glad that they ended it at this because it's best. By the end of number 3, they kind of said, we're done. But I'm pretty sure it was like a fan cry saying we want more Tremors that made them decide, you know what, let's make a prequel and just try and explain something. And yeah. The only thing that bugged me about the continuity is by the end of this, and this is just kind of a spoiler, even though it should be pretty obvious, they kill all the graboids. Now, I am going against my rule by mentioning this, but if you watch any Friday the 13th or any Nightmare on Elm Street movie, they always suddenly have the killer come back at the very end saying, we're gonna have a sequel. Now, this one didn't, and I understand this was the final one, but if they all died in Tremors 4, then where exactly did the graboids in Tremors come from? And I understand there probably is an explanation for that, and if someone would tell me, I would be so thankful. But they don't really explain it, because I'm not sure if Kevin Bacon or Fred Ward or any of those guys ever even dreamed of a 4th one of these movies. I really doubt they ever did. Wow, you guys, if you can find like a Tremors trilogy box containing the first 3, like some triple feature, pick that up, you will love it. This Tremors Attack Pack, I picked this thing up for $5. 3 movies, $5, I'm happy with that. And the only thing that's keeping me from snapping the disc in half, so I will never have to have a physical copy of Tremors 4 again, is this. They decided to save time and money to put Tremors 3 and Tremors 4 onto the same disc. So I'm pretty much stuck with it, but luckily I can choose only to watch Tremors 3, which was still really good. Yeah. Wow, you guys. I am going to go watch the original 3 Tremors films right now. I have never felt this cheated. Well, I already went through that since The Hangover Part 3. I cannot believe how bad this thing was. Oh, you guys, I'm almost laughing at how bad this thing was, and not in a good way. But hey, I'm gonna go watch the first 3 Tremors, and hopefully I can get this out of my mind. So, with that, we come to the close of this episode of the Meteoraptor Reaction and Review, and until next time, this is the Meteoraptor saying keep cool, and I will see you all, and I'll see you guys around.
You don't have to come and confess. We're looking for you. We gon' find you. We gon' find you. So you can run and tell that, run and tell that, run and tell that, homeboy.